I'm doing good tonight, Ray. I hope you are too, and I hope our guest is also.
I am.
I'm quite well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, I want to introduce our audience to Jeff Buziak. Jeff is uh, out of well, Jeff, why don't you tell us where you're from in Canada?
Well, I live in Calgary, Alberta, and right now I'm in Victoria, BC, which is on Vancouver Island. Actually, Victoria is below the 49th parallel, right across from Washington State. It has a population of about 400,000 people, 10 different municipal districts, and 5 police forces, believe it or not. Pretty place. They say it's for newlyweds and nearly deads, but it's a gorgeous place to live.
You know, going back to February 2nd, which a lot of people look at February 2nd as Groundhog Day in the United States, but it's so much more than that to you, Jeff. It marks the 18th anniversary of the horrific unsolved murder of your daughter, Lindsay, in Saanich, British Columbia. You know, many investigations are known to focus on the crime scene itself, and not the killer. But as investigators, both Jim and I, we understand that you can focus on the killer, but you can't find the killer until you truly know who the victim was. And what we want to do, our mission here on Cold Red, is to focus on Lindsay, who Lindsay was, what was Lindsay involved in, what was some of her things she enjoyed, and what were some of the things that were going on in her life before that horrific day on February 2nd.
And if I can add here, we're launching a four-part deep dive into victimology in the FBI. And the FBI, as they define it, we don't just look at the wounds of the victims, we look at their lives too. We look at the victim's risk, their routines, and their social environment that allowed an offender to get close. Today,
You
we
know,
start at the source.
you know, Jeff, it's so great to have you. I know you've been on the ground all week. They've had a special walk for your daughter, and you walk the same streets in Saanich that your daughter walked every single day, and you're feeling that same silence that's haunted this case for almost 2 decades. Jeff, um, words can't, being a father, and Jim is a father, words can't express um, what you must be feeling every single day about your daughter. And you and your family are in my thoughts and prayers every single day since I talked to you over a month ago.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And, it's hard to comprehend what parents especially go through losing a child to homicide, murder. And it is statistically known in Canada that over 42% never recover. So they become victims of drugs, alcohol, depression, suicide. And I was just determined not to fall into that category. So basically, after about year two, I've been fighting for justice, and it's been a hard fight. You're pushing all the time, and it seems as much as you get many people in the community giving you sympathy and support in a emotional way, little has progressed in the case. The police hold it very tight to their chest. They will not classify it as a cold case, even though at times there are no officers working it. And so it becomes very frustrating. It's very stressful. There isn't a day go by I'm not doing anything, and that's by my choice that I stay very involved and very active. I live a lifestyle. I don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. I'm very active. I eat healthy, and the stress got me to triple bypass open heart surgery this past year. And so I will not stop, though. I held Lindsay in the morgue shortly after the murder, and I vowed to her that I would not stop finding out who did this to her. and I would keep trying till the day I die. And I intend to uphold my end of that bargain. So days like February the 2nd, I don't see as an anniversary. I see it as Murder Day. And each year that goes by, when I have to face Murder Day, it's not a pleasant situation to be in. But in saying that, I just keep pushing. That's all I know now. Just push forward every day. I say I have to do something towards Lindsay's unsolved murder.
Jeff,
Ray, just
go ahead, Jeff.
Rick, all summer we had on a father who lost his daughter, Sil Schieber. She was the victim of a serial rapist and murderer. And the case is resolved. But Ray, it's not too much easier for him. And I know it was cathartic talking. I think we did about 18 episodes or so with him, reliving that case, bringing victims on. So we know how, well, we don't know. We can't sympathize or empathize with exactly what you're going through or what our guest over the summer did, but we're going to try to do our best to understand. And whether you get anything cathartic out of this or not, maybe we can help solve the case. And I think that's going to be our ultimate goal here. But certainly telling our public about it and our Cold Red audience, maybe we'll get some clues that we need to finally resolve it.
And I really appreciate that. I find it very heartwarming, if we can refer to that as cathartic, that every time I receive assistance and help and from, certainly from gentlemen as qualified as yourselves, is very important to me. My goal always is to keep the word out there that Lindsay's murder is unsolved. Everybody's aware of it. As I travel around Victoria, yesterday I went to do some retail therapy after my day off, and first store I walk in, somebody pointed to me and said, "Aren't you Jeff, Lindsay's dad?" So, I guess we're accomplishing that goal of keeping it in the public eye. But unfortunately, it just appears the police are oblivious to that. I don't know what their role, thought, however it is they function, but it's very frustrating to me because in my life, I've been a do it kind of guy. I understand things take time. They tell me, "Jeff, this is a very complicated case. It takes years." And I'm like, 18? Come on. If you are missing something, go get it. Don't tell me that officers are reassigned and we're not working it right now. That's not solving the case to me. So I'm very frustrated with how things have transpired over the years. It seems in the whispers of Victoria and the people I speak with, everybody more or less says the same thing about who did it, but they will not repeat that publicly, but they'll tell me in a low tone of voice in my ear.
Jeff, this might be difficult for you. And if it is, just say the word. But I think it's important that our audience understand what happened to your daughter and what transpired and what led up to what transpired. And you and I talked about this, and it was an unbelievable story that you told me. And I'm hoping that you can share that same story with our audience, if it's okay.
Absolutely. I have no problem sharing. I think I expressed to you, Ray, that after some time went by after her murders, probably coming up on the second year, I was very devastated. I always tell people I was curled up in the corner in the fetal position, sucking my thumb. And then I looked in the mirror one day and just saw a pathetic man, a worn out, pathetic guy. And it dawned on me in harsh terms, look, pal, this ain't about you. This was about a wonderful young woman who was murdered, not about you. Get off your pity party, get off your butt, go out there and do something about this. And that changed my life at that point. I went from grieving parent, which I still am. Not that long ago, somebody created a song for Lindsay. I was in a warehouse, empty warehouse, and I thought, oh, I was waiting for some clients. I'll just listen to this song. I put it on, and within the first few lines, I actually collapsed on the floor sobbing. And I haven't done that in a lot of years. Something about the song hit me hard. So I listened to it, sobbing the whole time, desperately sobbing. And, it was over, and I thought, I didn't hear the song. I was just so busy sobbing. So I sat in a vehicle and replayed it, and I just broke down again, and it was horrendous. So that never leaves you. But what I promised myself early on after I saw in the mirror is I said, okay, this is business. So I'll deal with anything with Lindsay's murder. This is business. My mourning is private. They're two separate things. So in saying that, Lindsay was a 24-year-old aspiring young real estate agent, or if we can refer to realtor. She was leaving her boyfriend at the time, planning on leaving her boyfriend. And at that time, she was also working for the boyfriend's mother out of her office. Lindsay and I talked about this quite a bit. And she had a timeline to leave the boyfriend. And it was based partially on a number of deals that were closing a couple months later. She never got to see those deals closed. And in the meantime, she got a call from a woman who said her husband was being transferred to Victoria and that they were coming there on the weekend to purchase a home, or at least look for a home to purchase. Because with corporate transfers, they'll allow the couples to go to the new city being transferred to look for a home, usually for a long weekend. So Lindsay got quite excited. At that time, they put their budget of $1 million. So this was in 2008. And in Victoria, that was a higher priced home. So she knew she was going to make a really good fee off that. So she was quite excited about the call. She asked the people how they got her name, and they told her that it was from a previous client that she had worked with. They named the client, and they said, we'll talk. So find us this home. They described what they required, or the woman did. And so Lindsay was very excited. She even phoned me to discuss it because I'm also in the real estate industry. I don't sell houses, but when I started, I did. And so I know the industry very well. And she started looking for a home for them, could only find one that suited their needs. It was suggested to her by her boss, boyfriend's mom. And turns out there was a connection to the home through the boyfriend's mom. So Lindsay also was supposed to be going to a party in Vancouver across the Strait of Juan de Fuca that same evening. So we discussed how she could maybe do both, but turned out that it was getting tighter and tighter to be able to do that. She didn't want to pass up on this sale. So,
Jeff, can I stop you right there? Because I want to say something. I don't want to miss this. But what you just said, you said something that kind of kicked, and I think Jim probably felt this as well. You said that Lindsay wanted to know how they got her name.
yes.
And she got it from another client.
Okay? That's what they told her, and they named the client.
Correct. That's very singular in nature. There's a very small pool of people who would know that.
Absolutely.
One would be, and that would be someone in the realtor's office, or the client
Correct.
themselves. I'm
Correct.
just throwing that out. I just at this point, and then Lindsay was talking about going to a party. I just didn't want to miss that. I think that's very crucial in the investigative aspect of this.
I do as well. It turned out the owner of the home was friends with her boss as well. So as time went on, there was a number of phone calls between Lindsay and the client back and forth. They call her, she called them. I think it was around 10 phone calls that had transpired over a very short period of time to set up this showing. And as a matter of fact, at one point, the husband of the so-called couple phoned her and said, look, my wife's not well today, meaning the day they were going to view the home. So I may be there on my own. Is that okay? And that's, to me, strange too, being in the real estate industry, because normally you make an appointment with somebody to show a home. They might bring an uncle, they might bring, their kids, they might have a dog, they might, somebody might not be there, but they'll, if I like it, they'll come and see it tomorrow. So I found it kind of strange that that was said, but it turned out a couple did arrive. So as the calls transpired, Lindsay got worried for some reason. She told me that the woman had an accent, and she said, Daddy, it sort of sounds like Spanish or Mexican, but not really. It's like a made up accent or something. So that started her worry about the showing, because she phoned the previous client who supposedly referred her, and they were away on holidays. So again, who would know that? So she got quite concerned, but the couple were coming from out of town, and they said they were catching a ferry over to Victoria. That's the main form of transportation, is catch the ferry across. You can fly or helicopter or float plane, but typically the main transportation is by ferry. And so they said, we'll meet you at the house. So she discussed with me now her concern about, she didn't feel right about the showing. She was concerned about this couple. It just didn't sit right with her. So I said, make sure somebody goes there with you. And she goes, yeah, I will. I go, no, Lindsay, make sure somebody's there. Do I have to fly out there myself? And she's like, no, Dad, Jason will be there. And I go, are you sure? And she raised her voice to me and she goes, Dad, Jason will fucking be there. And that was very uncommon of her to speak to me like that. So I said, okay, fine. So he wasn't.
Jeff, just to be clear, Jason was the boyfriend that she's trying to break up with?
That's correct.
Who works for his mother, and so does your daughter.
Well, how the arrangement is he was licensed both as a realtor and a mortgage broker. And he didn't like the real estate part of it, so he was functioning more as a mortgage broker. And Lindsay had already had a number of sales under her belt, and Jason had arranged mortgage financing for those sales. So he was swinging towards mortgage brokering and was working for a mortgage brokerage company. And now he has his own mortgage brokerage company. So he doesn't do real estate. He didn't really do it at that time either. So unfortunately, it seems we know through a couple witnesses that Lindsay met a couple outside the house at 5:30 p.m. She had accessed the lockbox, real estate lockbox, to gain entry to the house. The couple arrived and they went into the house, and however that transpired, they ended up in the master bedroom and stabbed her to death. Some people close to the action have told me stabbed over 40 times. Police are trying to refute that. They will not release the autopsy report to me. I saw Lindsay in the morgue, and when I reached a point where maybe I was going to have a look, The police officer who was accompanying me said, "Jeff, don't look. Please, please, please do not pull the sheet down." So in respect of both her and my daughter, I didn't. But I've been told she was stabbed in the neighborhood of 40 times, her breast mutilated, and her throat slit. She had just gone through breast augmentation. So for those listening, in case you're concerned that I'm afraid to talk about certain things involving Lindsay's murder, there are no barriers. This is business for me.
Jeff, were the stab wounds mostly from the front, or were they both in the front and the back, if you know?
I was told the first stab was in the base of her neck at the back, and they severed her spinal cord, so she was rendered inoperable. They dragged her into the bedroom and focused on the front area, especially her breast area. I was in the house shortly after it was released from police, whatever they call it, custody. And I saw where she was laying on the floor. The police had removed carpeting, trim, various things in the house. And it was already starting to be in a stage of cleaning. So where she was laying on the floor in the master bedroom, the carpeting was gone, but the floor, the wood floor part of it, meaning the subfloor, the plywood, had already been painted over. And there's pictures of that on the internet, which I took while I was in the house. So the boyfriend arrived 15 minutes late, drove by the house, by the front of it, and I drove by there a couple days ago. It's what they call a strata subdivision, so small lots, big houses. And when you drive by that front door, your vehicle is no more than 25 feet away from the front door, because the street is narrow, the houses are big, they're close together. There are a couple different stories about what transpired from the boyfriend. One is that as they were driving in, they saw shadows in the opaque glass in the front door area. That's one story. The other story is as they drove by, the couple were walking out of the house. And then when they saw the vehicle, they turned around and scooted right back in and closed the door. And the boyfriend said he thought the showing was just starting. And of course, I question, how can it be starting when they're leaving? He drove by, pulled into a cul-de-sac with the rear of his vehicle facing the house. So I speculate that he could see the front of the house in his rear view mirrors, but the passenger couldn't. Sat there for 10 minutes, turned around, drove by the house again, parked out on the adjoining street, sat there for another 10 minutes, and then decided, gee, why don't we go see what's going on? Because he had texted Lindsay and there was no response.
Let me ask before you go, Jim. Because of the neighborhood, was there potential for security cameras that may have been in the neighborhood where they were able to get security footage? Because if it's 25 feet from the front door of these homes, it should be pretty easy to pick up a make and model of a vehicle, maybe even a tag.
In 2008, security cameras weren't a big item, especially in quiet little old Victoria. Any of the neighbors or witnesses do not recall seeing a vehicle parked by the house. They seem to recall seeing the couple walking up to Lindsay and Lindsay putting out her hand to greet them. There's supposedly 2 witnesses that their stories corroborate. They're not connected, they're separate. I was in front of the house one day, and one of the witnesses stopped and said, "Are you Jeff?" "I'm one of the witnesses." He was driving by. And I said, "Yeah, like, what can you tell me?" And he goes, "I'm sorry." He said, "I was driving my vehicle, glanced over, not thinking there's a murder, saw some people, turned my head back to watch the road." He said, "All I saw was 3 people, sorry."
And in February, no doubt it's dark at that time of night, 5:30.
It's certainly dusk. Victoria is a very mild climate. They don't get snow really, usually 1 or 2 little sprinkles during the winter that goes away. Typically it rains a lot, hence rainforest. But yes, getting dark or dark at that time.
And just so we're clear, it seems from separate witness accounts, and you met at least one of them, no one is denying, or I should say, it seems very credible, your daughter, Lindsay, did meet with a man and woman.
That seems to be the case. That seems to be corroborated by the 2 independent witnesses. I don't know who the other one was. I just know I met the one, just by chance.
And ostensibly, Lindsay was talking to a man and a woman on the phone days or a week or so prior to this meeting.
That is correct.
And the woman had some sort of an accent.
Right. The phone had been purchased in Vancouver at a convenience store. By the time Saanich police got there was no way of identifying who they were. Supposedly the security cameras at the convenience store were not functioning at the time. And the address they gave to get the phone, which we refer to as burner phone, was a false address and a false name of Paulo Rodriguez. That name, I was told by a linguist, university professor, is a common name in Brazil, same as John Smith would be in England. And Brazil, of course, their language is a mixture of Portuguese and Spanish. And the connection there, the owner of the murder house is Portuguese. And he told a friend of mine, the little bitch got what she deserved.
We can come back to that. Was anything stolen from Lindsay?
There, according to police, there is no sign of sexual action, and nothing was missing. It was strictly a targeted killing.
And upwards of 40 stab wounds. Lindsay, this targeting was very important to the people who did this.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we call overkill,
Yes.
Sustained aggression. And we can perhaps come back.
When I questioned police about that, I said, this is a crime of passion, because, a huge percentage of very attractive young women leaving their boyfriends, we know what happens to them. And they said, well, the killer was instructed to make it look like that. And I said to them, how would you know that?
In our previous conversations, you mentioned that Lindsay told you that she was scared.
Yes.
That something was off.
Yes.
Did she name anybody? And in the 2 to 3 months before this happened, did she have any conversations with you or name anybody when she talked about those fears?
No. What happened was mid-December, she came to visit me in Calgary, which is 600 miles away from Victoria on the other side of the Rocky Mountains. And ostensibly, our discussions for the few days she visited with me were, I made a mistake. I have to get out of this mess with this boyfriend and his mom, who's completely whacked. And, you know, what do I do, Daddy? And in those discussions, you know, between we went skiing, we're out for dinner, we went shopping, we had a good time because we were very close and got along really well. We were sitting one evening, she was curled up in the chair, I was sitting across from her, and her demeanor changed, and she looked at me and she said, Daddy, I saw something I shouldn't have seen. And she was terrified. And I was like, honey, what's going on? She goes, oh, Dad, you know, I'm dealing with it. And of course, I'm not thinking my daughter's going to be murdered. And I also have a point of having a lot of respect for her and was treating her like a woman. So I wasn't going to go over and put her in a headlock and give her a noogie and tell her to tell me, or I wouldn't let her go. So I just said, Linz, you know, you should tell me what you saw, and you should tell somebody, because if anything ever happened to you, someone needs to know. And she goes, I know, Dad, I know. She said, I'll tell you, but not right now. I'm dealing with it. So obviously she came to Calgary to visit me to talk about stuff she was dealing with. And so for me, if I can speculate on the program, the reason she wouldn't tell me, because she had told me about many things in her life, about, you know, guys with drugs and money and stuff she had seen in her travels, as probably any pretty young girl does if they're out and about. And she did not like that scene at all, didn't partake in it, wasn't interested. Actually, she really disliked drug dealers because some of her girlfriends had boyfriends and got hooked on cocaine, and Lindsay was very protective of her girlfriends. So in my speculation, the reason she wouldn't tell me, as she normally would, was because she was in the midst of it. And she was telling me, I'm handling it and I'm, you know, exiting. And so our discussion was about her exit from her boyfriend and family. She didn't make it.
Jeff, what does that mean? She's in the midst of it.
Meant that it was like very close to her surroundings, you know, like somebody who she's with. And, you know, if I can be frank, like boyfriend and family, like something right in that, because she knew if she told me, I would have said to her, okay, you're out of there now. And I probably would have taken action. And of course, that's what she didn't want, was to get me involved directly. So she was in the midst of it, and it wasn't peripheral. It wasn't, oh, you know, my friend Susie's got this boyfriend with a problem. No, it was direct, first person stuff that she couldn't talk about because my nature is I'm a doer. So I would have done something about it. And she didn't want that because she was handling it, she told me.
Well, and we talked before, you mentioned that back in 2007, it was a big drug bust in that area. Did she have the opportunity, or if you look back, did Lindsay meet or reconnect with anybody after that drug bust? That now, because she seemed very secretive.
No, that wasn't her thing at all. So there's a lot of talk about that drug bust because it involved, I don't know, one or two people that she knew, but not like she knew because they were friends of hers. You have to remember, she was born and raised, educated, worked, in Saanich or Victoria. There's a bunch of different municipalities, but it's all called Victoria. So, she went to school with guys in grade 5 or 4 or 6 or whatever it was that, now they're drug dealers. So, and you bump into each other because let's say you go out as a young woman with your girlfriends to a nightclub. Well, there's like one main nightclub in Victoria that's popular. So that's where everybody goes. So now this guy she went to high school with is some kind of gangster drug dealer. Well, she didn't tell him to F off. She'd be like, oh, hi, how are you? Lindsay was a very friendly person. So, did she know people? Yeah. Did she hang out with them? No, she really, really disliked drug dealers and didn't want anything to do with them. She was very focused on her real estate career. She wanted to be extremely successful, which that is where she was going. She was well known in the city, even from people from school and stuff. And yes, even the drug dealers. I remember her calling me one time saying, Dad, these guys are calling me. Like, what am I supposed to do? They're telling me, like, hey, Linz, you're in the business now. Like, hey, I want to buy a house. Maybe you can show me some houses. And I said, well, Linz, like, your job is to sell houses, right? So if somebody shows up, wants to buy a house, they can write a check from a bank for a deposit, sell them the house. It's not your business to decide who's what. Your business to sell a house. If it's legit, you sell the house. Sure. If it's guys who arrive with a hockey bag full of cash, tell them to FO, right? Or if you just despise them, you don't have to do any work with them. So that was her deal. So of course she was super popular. So a lot of people called her when she got into the business, including some bad guys. They'd phone her up because they had gone to grade 8 with her, or, they had one time dated one of her girlfriends, so she got to know them. So that was really her association. But as far as associating with drug people and involved in all that stuff, no. But some of her girlfriends dated drug dealers, small town, you end up going to a party someplace. Some fancy house, oh, gee, it's owned by a drug dealer and there's a bunch of cocaine on the table. Those sorts of things happened as she was growing up. And she used to tell me about that.
You brought up, I'm going to go back to the crime scene, if not the autopsy. Jeff, you brought up the fact that your daughter had breast augmentation.
Yes.
And that her breasts seem to have been targeted.
Yes.
May I ask you how recently was her surgery and who paid for the surgery, if you know?
My understanding is the surgery was just prior to the showing, within, let's say, a couple months. I'm told that Lindsay paid a certain amount down and then had terms with the surgeon. I've tried to contact the surgeon. He won't return my calls. So as far as who paid, was it Lindsay from her own money she earned selling, or did someone else give her the money to have the down payment? I don't know. I suspect, for her to finish paying for it, she was anxious to have those deals close March the 1st.
I just don't think I've ever come across a case that you're describing here, certainly in the US, in which, I mean, some men have paraphilia, they have fetishes, they'll do things to women's breasts, but the way you're describing it, with perhaps 40 stab wounds with a focus on the breast, of course, this is where the heart is too, underneath. I'm just wondering if psychologically, somehow that played a role. I don't know.
Well,
From
yes.
perspective or another man's perspective, I don't know. And did someone pay money for them? And again, I hate to kind of, but was someone else seeing them besides the person who paid money? I don't know. And I'm trying to put myself inside the mind of the killer or killers, and what is the motivation? Number one, why was she targeted? And what we're talking about here, the breast mutilation, was this like a side, um, uh, target of the stabber? So I'm just trying to get a feel on this for whatever it's worth in trying to better determine why she was murdered.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you there 100%. And I was a little bit puzzled by that to begin with, too. And funny enough, I at one point was talking to a friend of mine, and I had mentioned that fact, or he had heard it, and he said, he said, "Jeff, do you remember that girlfriend I had, so and so?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I paid for her to have breast augmentation." And I said, "Oh, okay. Where's this going?" He said, "Well, it's funny." He said, "Because when we broke up some time after," he said, "that was one thing that pissed me off." He said, "I paid for those. They were mine." And I was taken aback by the way he was talking about it. But I think it sort of ties into some of your questioning there that, guys tend to want to own or possess something. And just his comments, and he went on about it a bit and said, "Some other guy's going to enjoy that, blah, blah, blah," that kind of guy talk. And so then it dawned on me. I thought, yeah, like that's what's going on in Lindsay's case too.
But the fact that there's a woman involved and a tandem of people we have here, it just jealousy. I mean, yeah, we have to flesh this out more. It looks like Ray, you had a question or a comment.
Well, I want to step back a little bit here, Jeff, and I'm trying to, like Jim is, put myself. What is it? Not only was she targeted, she was specifically selected.
Yes.
And there was pre-planning that went on in this by the offender or offenders,
Mm-hmm.
which leads me to believe Lindsay got involved in something that she had to get herself out of. And then we talk about the police and the fact that the police aren't letting this go, which leads me to believe that there's a connection with the police and Lindsay. Is it Lindsay providing information to them and someone finds out about that? And it gets out and they're not able to protect Lindsay and puts them on the hook for it. I mean, I'm throwing this out. I don't know if it's true, but somehow, some way, she was, and you said she wasn't into that criminal element. And although she may not have been directly involved in it, she had knowledge of it, which people would say, "Hey, let's go talk to Lindsay Buziak because Lindsay is not involved in these things." And what happens with Lindsay is that she's a much more credible witness because she doesn't engage in these activities, but she has all the same information.
And let me just add to there, before Jeff, you respond, all that Ray said is very accurate. It could be real though, or perceived.
Correct.
And the people perceiving it, it's real to them. So nothing could have been happening, but somehow they thought things could have been happening that were detrimental to them. We'll let you respond to that.
Okay. I agree with everything you're saying. I did question police extensively about that, and they assured me many times over Lindsay was not an informant and they weren't working with her in any capacity. But I've also been told police don't always tell the truth to catch killers. That was a big aha moment for me, or at least here, that's what they told me. So when I look at that, and I think, because there's talk out there about, oh, cartel this and stuff going on. And, you know, she maybe was mistakenly targeted because of something. I really don't buy that, in the sense of, one, if it's cartel, two, if it's, you know, a seriously planned hit. And the reason I don't buy some of that stuff is I look at men as kind of cavemen. When you're hired to do a job, you go get the shovel or the pick or the bat or the axe or whatever you need to go do your job. And if it's a killer, I'm guessing he's going to go probably get a gun. If it's a guy, maybe stab, and they go do the job. They don't set up some elaborate ruse with a young woman about, oh, my wife's moving and we need to buy a house and da 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 da. The whole setup of Lindsay's murder, almost like it came out of a romance murder novel or something. It wasn't Guy, where you go to a guy and say, hey, go take that guy out for me. Okay, well, where does he park? Or they go follow you and you park in a dark alley and they kill you. Or they go to your underground parking spot, which she had, and kill you. And if it's cartel, they probably hang you from a bridge with no head. Or cartel want people to know it was them. There's no secrets there. Like, we did this, that means shut up or you're next. Lindsay's case was this elaborate setup. And not to be sexist, but just to talk direct about this murder, I believe that whole elaborate setup with the woman and the husband and da 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 was planned by a woman. Guys don't do that stuff. None that I know, and I know from all walks of life. That was planned by a woman and probably executed by a man and possibly a woman involved in it. Doesn't necessarily mean one person did the stabbing, because there were so many stab wounds. Could very well have been two people stabbing. Here, let me have a go at her because I hate her, or whatever the case may be. So when I take this, oh, maybe it was mistaken identity and the cartel were out to kill somebody, they just come and kill you. They shoot you in the head and you're done. Or, you know, whatever they do, not some stupid elaborate real estate setup. And the real estate setup was such that I know real estate. I got my license in 1980 and I still function. So we're talking 40 some years. A corporate setup, a corporate transfer, which we call it here in Canada, is a certain way of going to buy real estate. Typically, whoever's transferring you, they're going to guarantee the sale of your house, or they're going to allow you to buy one. They'll buy your house. They allow you a couple weekends to go try and find a place. Here, our transactions are different than the US. You can make an offer to purchase, put a down payment, let's say subject to financing. That could take 10 days, 2 days, 2 weeks. When that's done, you remove that condition clause and you can close. There's no waiting for whatever you call it in the US. Here, it's just like done deal, lawyer's office, done. So, you know, all that sort of that transpired there, somebody knew about corporate transfer that set it up. And I can guarantee you probably well in excess of 50% of real estate agents don't know how a corporate transfer works and have never done one. I know from my experience, whoever planned Lindsay's murder knew exactly how a corporate transfer worked. Everything they said, everything they set up with Lindsay was corporate transfer.
And Jeff, just as importantly, if even more importantly, do you think they knew she'd be there by herself?
Yes, for sure.
Because her whole plan, or the whole plan, well, it would have been made a lot more difficult if somehow some colleague of hers went with her for this house showing.
Right. Two things went on there to confirm that is, one, she hollered at me, Jason's going to fucking be there.
Right.
He wasn't. She had gone to the head office of where she worked and told people there. One of them was ex-police officer who I just talked to yesterday. He's in Vegas, so we didn't meet. He offered to go with her because she was there expressing her concern. And he goes, Lindsay, I'll go with you. She's like, no, it's okay. Jason's going to be there. So she was that concerned. She wanted to have somebody there. And she turned down offers of people to accompany there because Jason was going to be there, her boyfriend. He wasn't. And when he did arrive, he waited around. So, yeah.
You know, Jeff, I kind of agree with you. I think the cartel theory is a smokescreen. I believe, at least what you've told me, I haven't seen all the information, but I have a strong inclination that this is local and that it's individuals that are locally, and it's something that's going on with a crime that was going on at that time of someone that was under investigation by the police. And I don't know if it ever came to anything, but I believe that Lindsay may have been or may have had conversations with the police about it. And
Awesome.
like Chip said, you know, whether it's real or whether it's perceived that she was talking to somebody, but apparently she might have, because she said to you, Dad, I got myself involved in something that I need to get out of. And that leads me to believe that she's talking to the police about something and she needs to stop it because she's worried about someone finding out. That's purely conjecture on my part, but there's some reason. Why was she specifically selected?
Well, if I can interject there, just for my own comfort as a father, she didn't get herself involved in something bad that she shouldn't have. She saw something. Her words were, I saw something I shouldn't have seen. That's important for me as a parent and a dad. And I feel that the tone that I saw, her physical presence, her demeanor at the time, and of course, I've had 18 years to reflect on that. My university degrees in psychology, so I've analyzed that every which way I possibly could. And knowing my daughter very well, it was something bad beyond just seeing, 5 keys of cocaine. She'd seen that before at parties or whatever. It was something going on that involved people that shouldn't be involved in the community. That's what she saw. Something bad with people that shocked her, that, these are important members in the community that aren't involved in bad stuff. And I've seen them. Like, how do I get out of this? She wasn't involved.
Let me ask you,
saw. Yes.
Is there anything in the last month or two before her murder where there was someone else that was killed?
Yeah, I reviewed all that, and I had volunteers helping me scour everything. And there were a couple of things. That one, she was over in Vancouver and hanging out with a girlfriend, and I think they were in the area of this restaurant where some gangsters killed each other. I tried to talk to as many people as I could over there. The girlfriend said no, and Lindsay would have told me about that because it would have been disconnected from her. So I sort of discounted that one, told the police about it. They went, no, nothing. And then she was living up at a place called Shawnigan Lake when she first decided to live with Jason Zalo. They moved into a house that Jason's mom bought for $1.385 million. They moved into that to live on the lake. And at around the same time they were there, another young fellow who was known to be into the grow up deal, went missing. He's never been found. And there is an association to him to Lindsay's boyfriend's friend. That's a possibility.
What time frame are we talking? How long before her murder was he missing? Approx.
6 months.
Okay.
You know, what I want to do is there's a lot more that I think we need to cover here. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to cut it here and bring you back next week, and we can get into the investigation aspect of things a little bit and talk about that. Are you able to come back next week, Jeff?
Absolutely. I think we've arranged next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday would be great. So, Jim, before we sign out, I want to do a shout out to a class I teach in cold case investigations. I want to do a shout out to those students. I asked them to listen in tonight about this, Jeff, that we can talk about this more in class. The more people have eyes on this, the better off it's going to be. So shout out to all my students in the cold case class that I teach. Jim, to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for coming on tonight, and we will see you next week. This is a very interesting case, and you lived through this. This is your daughter. I hope we can come up with something for you in the next few weeks as we continue to discuss this. And yeah, I'll have some more questions for you next week about victimology and, of course, crime scene, and we'll walk everyone through that. So everyone out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Cold Red. Thanks to our producers, Matt McLaughlin, Matt Robinson, our music conductor, if you will, Rick Stilling, and everybody like, subscribe everywhere. Check us out, coldredpodcast.com for other episodes, and we will see you next time on Cold Red.
Cold Red crew, thank you very much. Gentlemen,